Hello. It's been a while, Joanna.
It
How have
has
you
indeed.
how have you been? And what's it
I've been,
like now being a consultant?
yeah, I've been very good. I celebrate my first year anniversary as a consultant this month, so all good. But yeah, it's certainly different, Raymond. It's definitely different, but good.
Yeah. Well, maybe for those that don't know you, if you could maybe just give me a little bit of a background. And I know you started in Brook Street a long time ago, but I don't know if you could take me from Brook Street to today as a potted history.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I joined, I think like a lot of us in the industry, fell into recruitment back in 2003 in the joyous days where I think computers were just about coming in. I remember a lot of my applicants were on card format. And yeah, I had a number of years with Brook Street and started off as branch manager and then literally kind of worked my way up, worked through with Randstad, had 5 or 6 years with them, went on to another organisation that was a startup in the UK, but a massive global organisation doing MSPs and
Yeah.
RPOs. And really the trajectory very much continued. And then my last role, I was 9 years with RGF Staffing. And the last 4 of those years was of COO,
Very
which for
important.
me, yeah, which yes, but it had, like any role of that size, the areas of responsibility and what you're looking after. So I pretty much looked after all of the middle office infrastructure except finance. So I had IT, marketing, people and culture, learning and development, compliance, legal, contractor care, the whole remit. And for the 4 years, it really gave me some great exposure into the working mechanics of an organisation, what it takes to be successful from an infrastructure perspective in the staffing industry, but also in an industry that is constantly evolving, constantly trying to be better and service the ever evolving needs of the clients, no matter what industry they're in.
Yeah.
So it was a great role to really get that visibility and understanding of what good looks like, but also the pitfalls that you have to be mindful of and watch for constantly as you move through the industry and the evolution of your clients' programs.
And that's where you bumped into Kylo, and that's where you bumped to us. And if I can be pretty honest, we were a bit scared of you to begin with because you were the scary COO who was keeping us in line as we started the project. And that project started and ended. And I think we can probably all say we did a decent job.
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And do you know what I liked the most? And I would say this is a real key for me with any supplier relationships is there are times where you have to have difficult conversations. And I think your ability to come together as partners, not client supplier, I think that's really important, is as partners, have those difficult conversations. And for me, seeing how that partner responds and behaves in those moments is key to what the future relationship is going to look like. And I have to say, yeah, those early few weeks, early few months were challenging for us both. But actually, from a Kyloe perspective, I'd work with you guys again in a heartbeat.
Okay. So now that you're on your own as such, can you explain to me what a transformation and change consultant is? Because it does sound rather grand.
Yeah, it really isn't. Basically, what I do is I work predominantly with staffing firms that are looking to either make changes within the organisation or make transformational changes within the business. And I think for me, it's key that organisations understand, is it a change process they need or a transformation process that they need? Because actually the two are very different. And I think like in a lot of industries, we use the terminology interchangeably. So when I'm talking to clients around change, that's basically trying to improve where somebody is today.
Okay.
So, for example, if you currently have a CRM and you are looking to make it more efficient and productive, and therefore you want to add an automation tool to that, that for me is change, because you're trying to improve something and make it better without fundamentally stripping out what's there.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, if you are a staffing client or even an end hirer looking to implement a CRM or a VMS to support a program that is going to change the entire way that you work, it's going to change the workflows, the processes, potentially the policies, that's transformation. And the difference in terms of why that is key to understand is with transformation, it isn't just about implementing the tool or the technology. You've got to change the culture of the business. You're going to be asking the people within your organization to do something differently, to behave differently. And therefore, it's really important for them to understand as an organization why you're making the change. How is this going to impact them? Ultimately, how's it going to make their life better? And what's expected of them? And that isn't a quick thing to do. That's something that needs to take time and planning to embed. Otherwise, you could implement the best technology in the world. If the people aren't bought into it, why would they use it? You're no better off than you were with your old system.
Yeah, I can imagine it's quite difficult to take the board decision that we're going to implement something new, buy something new, we need to change from the board table into the managers and the consultants and everyone else, such that they all follow the same flow. Is that something that was difficult from your experience when you were in the inside?
Definitely. I think it took a long time to appreciate the emotional journey that your employees go on and how long that can take. You know, people experience change, whether it's a positive change from an organizational perspective or a negative change when you're looking at restructuring, as an example. But you have to understand how different people are going to reach each sort of emotional change curve as you go through it. The challenge that a lot of organisations face when they're implementing any kind of change, and specifically when you are a bigger organisation and you've more stakeholders and more accountability, is that a lot of these changes require huge financial investment. And therefore, the pressure to see ROI is really, everybody wants to see that return on investment sooner rather than later. And that's very hard for leaders of an organisation to balance when you're looking at the implementation of specifically, technology, looking at getting it in, getting it implemented, taking those people on that journey, getting them using the system in the first instance, getting that utilisation of the tool up, and then fine-tuning it, after year one, that continuous improvement to look at how can you improve it? How can you close that gap, reduce time to hire, reduce the cost? And that's something that I say, companies, the senior level stakeholders want to see ASAP. But as business leaders, you've got to go through, you've got to complete all the steps. If you miss one, something's going to fall, through the cracks later on, and you won't see as much of that ROI as you'd originally planned.
Yeah, we do. It's interesting when we first engage with someone who's looking to move from their existing CRM to another CRM, for example, and as we're scoping the reasons or asking the reasons why the business is going to change, that's always very structured and everyone understands it. And then as you develop through the conversation, it becomes, okay, and how much is it going to cost? Oh, well, that's quite a lot. And how long is it going to take? Oh, that's quite a long time. So can you do it cheaper? Can you do it faster? And that evolves into how ready is the business itself to make that change? Because we can go really fast. We can take somebody from their old system to the new system in 6 weeks if everything aligned. Or if you want to do it so that it sticks and people go on the journey and people are involved in that, then it's better that you're maybe into a 20-week project or 40-week project, because you've got so many levels of difficulties. So you can't be a difficult business making a transformational change really quickly if you want it to stick.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was one of the things that I found when in my previous role, is that you really need, I think, as leaders, typically when you get to that stage of your career in that role, you've potentially been, like I had, with the business for quite a long period of time.
You knew it inside out.
Yeah, so you know how your organisation works and you know what you want to achieve. And I think this was one of the reasons why I chose the consultancy route, because actually one of the struggles I faced was that I knew what I knew, and I knew what we needed to achieve as a business, but me saying to Kyloe, this is what I want to achieve and this is how I'm going to get there, that's not for me to say. And I think, you know, where I was really reliant on you and your team was to say, well, yes, Joanna, you can do that. But actually, the implications are, if you do it that way, this is going to be the fallout. This is what you will be able to do this, but you won't be able to do X, Y, and Z. So what's more important to you? And this is where that whole collaboration approach, because I think a lot of suppliers, when they're engaging and implementing a tool or a service, it doesn't really matter. The client has a very clear idea in terms of what they want. And sometimes they know how they think they want to get there. But they're a specialist of their industry and their job. And this might be the first time or maybe the second time that they have made such a change or a transformation. The partner that you're engaging with, you would hope, has done this 10, 20, 30 times with smaller organisations, bigger organisations. And actually, you want to be able to have that relationship like we had at the end, where you could say, yeah, Joanna, you can go this route, but actually our advice is this way. And this is why. And I think so many people, I've seen some amazing organisations in the last 12 months that have tried to implement transformational changes to their organisation. They've worked with amazing suppliers, but actually they've said, I'm going to take this amazing bit of kit and I'm going to re-engineer it
to make it like the old one.
To look like the old one and to do things in exactly the same way that I've done things for the last 10 years. And then they're like, well, there's more admin, or it's not as efficient, or why is it? And it's like, it's because you didn't utilise the advice at no point. And sometimes that's the client's fault, and sometimes that's the supplier's fault, and sometimes it's both. And that's why that relationship is so important to get right, so both parties feel comfortable in having those open and honest conversations, because the reality is the client doesn't always know the best way. Understanding what the end goal is, absolutely fundamental. The client sets that from day one. But the supplier has got to help you find the best way of getting there that's going to tick all of those boxes and give you a reality check when your recommendation isn't right.
Yeah, no, we do have a number of lines, and I think at Kyloe over the years we've done over 400 implementations. And a good line is, well, we've done over 400 and you're the first person who's wanted to do it this way. That's really interesting. We've seen other ways. You might want to consider them. But now, maybe taking that, we're at the state of the economy, and I don't know what the state of the economy is. I wish I knew, because then I would be able to do something about it. But lots of companies are looking for productivity, growth, or growth through productivity, or productivity and growth. So how does technology, how does change, and specifically if we concentrate on technology, what are you seeing that allows that, or what sort of productivity are people looking for?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously the hot topic at the moment is good old chat GBT. Everybody's talking about how can we use it? How can
What's
it
that?
be?
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I know. I've never heard of it either. But I think, like a lot of industries, and it was the same back in the day in the HR space when everybody was talking big data. It was the hot topic, and then you kind of think, well, what was all that? What was all that about? Yeah. And the reality is now, I think and certainly off the back of COVID, there were a number of organisations that grew, if you were lucky enough, grew very, very fast. And actually what you found is they really staffed up, they ramped up, and actually what they didn't have to support them was the processes behind.
That's true.
And a lot of organisations now are looking at the way, and particularly with everybody working remotely, is how can they future-proof that business?
Okay.
How can they make sure that actually they've got the scalability and the infrastructure to support the new world that we're in now, that includes remote working, being efficient, streamlining, but still having the visibility and control. I think the challenge for a lot of organisations is and continues to be, there is a hell of a lot of technology out there. Where do you start? And I think if it was, for me, advising my clients is to be very, very honest about what it is you're looking to achieve in the first instance. What are those goals, and what is the business critical criteria of what you are looking to do over the course of the next 3, 5, 10 years. And you have to plan that far in advance, because anything these days, from a technology perspective, it's not just the cost of implementing the technology. That's a massive investment, but the time and resource it takes to implement it and then maintain it, it's ongoing. So you have to decide what it is that you're looking to achieve. And then you need to look at what capability do you have internally to facilitate these technologies? Because actually, a lot of companies want to have all the latest software. And the challenge then becomes you've got all these independent systems that all do something different, and you're no more efficient than you were before because you're managing multiple systems. So for me, it's what is the core system that you use? What is your CRM? Do they have marketplace partners? Okay. Always start there. What can be integrated? The way that you get true efficiency, in my view, is to integrate as much as you can into those core systems, whether it's your front office, your middle office, or your back office. And the more those systems talk to each other, the more efficient you can be. Okay. Then you can look at where can you add automation. Okay. The automation and technology should never, ever take away from the people part. What it should do is remove that administrative burden, which was allow you then to have that interaction with your candidates, your clients, your end customers, whatever that looks like. But I think you need to start off by absolutely understanding where you are today from a technology front, what systems you have in place, and what your infrastructure looks like from a people and resource perspective to be able to support that. And then when you know where it is you want to go, map that back to your starting point. What that should do is tell you or give you the initial startings of a roadmap in terms of what that journey is going to look like for you to move from where you are today to that ideal. And my expectation is it's going to be more than a few weeks.
Yeah, fair. Now, you mentioned efficiency, and I mentioned productivity.
Yeah.
And do you think they're the same, or are they different?
No, for me, they are different. I think, efficient for me tends to be the systems.
Okay.
Are the systems working in the most efficient way?
Okay.
Efficiency can drive productivity. And you will get, for me, when I talk about productivity, I'm talking about the people element of it. With efficient systems, policies and processes, your people can become more productive.
No, that seems to make sense. We obviously get involved in a lot of implementations of automation. And as part of that, everyone wants some of the boring things that good consultants in their day always did to be done automatically. And one of the challenges that we find are people have very high aspirations in automation, and some of them achieve it. And we've got some people who have automated in an amazing way, such they've almost been able to double the productivity of their existing consultants. And in others, where they're just not ready to automate yet. If you had any experience with people who would like to automate but aren't ready, and how do you advise them on what they need to do in order to get ready for automation?
Yeah, I think, at the moment, automation is the ultimate goal for a lot of businesses that I speak to. But I think when I look at where they are today, they may have only just started working with the CRM.
Okay.
So for me, it's very much around, and I always compare it to, buying a new house. When you buy a new house, I'm a great believer in you need to live in it for a while to see how you're going to utilise the house and the rooms in that house before you start knocking down the walls. And and for me, it's the same when people are looking at automation. You need, a lot of times, clients of mine are moving from what has been traditionally very manual processes into now a system-based that typically has different workflows to what they were used to before. So for me, it's around allowing my clients the opportunity and the time to embed into the system first, get them using that, and also making sure that the quality of data that is in that system before they look at automation is there. Because if you start automating processes and workflows when you've got giant great gaps of data missing from your system, it's not going to achieve the results that you want, in my experience. So for me, it's having that reality check and going back and looking at how are you using the system? Is the data where you need it to be? If it isn't, let's correct that. Then look at how can we automate those administrative processes to give your recruiters the quality time that they need with their clients and candidates.
I think that's a fantastic way of putting it, and we see that maybe not every day, but really often. And the example that strikes my mind, or comes to front of mind straight away, is an MD who got in touch with me saying that we had screwed up their automation, and we'd contacted people who were on their do not contact list. And why had that been done? And we discovered that it was the contacts did have do not contact in capital letters in the fax field. And no system, with the best of luck, is going to be able to read in capitals do not contact that's written in the fax field. And I think that was the classic example I use a lot when people go, oh, I want to automate. Is your data ready? Yes, it is. Okay, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Now, I hear a lot, and I don't know if I like this term or not, people speaking about their recruitment tech stack.
Yeah.
And it's sort of caught hold, and everybody's got their tech stack. And oh, what have you got in your tech stack? And I don't know whether that's a supplier speaking to organizations and wanting to speak about the tech stack, or whether individuals in organizations say, well, our tech stack is. What's your view on tech stack?
Raymond, tech stack.
I don't know. I really don't know. I like the concept. I like the pictures that come with it.
Yeah.
But when people go, oh, what's in your tech stack? We've got lots of things. We wrote down our tech stack, our Kyloe tech stack, and we've got 40 different pieces of kit.
Wow.
And some of those are only used by the marketing team. Some are only used by the project management team. Some are only used by the developers, and others are used by the data engineers who have micro tech stacks.
Mm.
And I think that there are consultants who at a desk have maybe developed their own micro tech stack, or maybe it's a process that they use that is, I won't say an Excel spreadsheet, because maybe hopefully we've moved on from Excel spreadsheets, that maybe they have a particular way that they write emails. And the way they write emails is they've got a document with all their emails, or they go to ChatGPT and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you write me an email? I'm unsure about I think tech stacks maybe had its day, and integration of your systems maybe is a good way. But hey, maybe you just need a headline that every 5 things you should do about your tech stack, and then we go from there. Now, you mentioned automation, and you've mentioned ChatGPT or AI. Other AI models exist. What do you think? Is this one here to stay? Have you seen this in the past? What's your opinion on? Maybe we'll concentrate on AI, because you brought it up early. So what's your view on AI, and do you use it yourself?
I don't really use it myself, no.
So you are a real person today.
I am a real person. Anybody that reads any of the articles that I write will probably ascertain that from themselves. But I think it probably has its place. But I think for me, I'm still probably a bit of a traditionalist in the fact, I'm still somebody that likes to go into an office and meet people in the flesh. In the same way that I think when you are trying to convey your views on something or an opinion and to give, guidance about what's happening, I think that has to come from a place of belief. I'm historically, right back in the day, I was a salesperson, and I was always very much, I can't sell anything unless I truly believe that it is the best product in the market or the best service or whatever. So I think for me, when I am putting anything out there in the domain, whether that's social media or engaging in a written format with, a potential client, it has to come from me, because that's what they're buying, Yeah. So I do think that potentially there is a place for such systems. I'm not 100% convinced that we're probably there yet in terms of capability wise. And I think, like with a lot of new technology, when it comes out, you are always going to have those early adopters. But again, already you're hearing challenges of information not being factually correct. And I think if you are going to utilize such systems for maybe to stop you looking at a blank page and to give you something as a starting point that you will then fact find against and add your own personal content to, that's probably fine. But I would be concerned around, an entire document or something being created, because it's not authentic. And I think in this day and age, and authentic isn't really a word that I actually particularly like using, but I think people have to, in order to have a relationship which is built on trust, it has to stem from something real.
Yes.
And I do think that's going to be a challenge moving forward, where technology takes over, until it gets to the point where actually you can't differentiate between what's real and what isn't. But I don't believe we're there yet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I think the point that we see people asking about AI is around, can it help me, or can it? So I think we'll maybe scrub that bit and I'll come back into another point. Where we see AI being able to help is where you start with a piece of information and you want to change it into the written word. And some of the sales consultants may not be the greatest at written English. So as an assistant, and I'm one of them, as an assistant, to help me make something sound better or get me started, I think the AI is there today. And we've got a number of people who are using it to generate job descriptions, or taking job descriptions and company profiles, merging them together to make them sound like a good advert in order to get quickly to the job boards or quickly to their own company website. And I think that allows for consultants who maybe would have spent half an hour, 45 minutes trying to write a job ad to be able to, or someone in the marketing team to help write a job ad to get something out quicker and therefore improve either the efficiency or the productivity of that person.
Yeah. And where I have actually seen AI work well is to improve how organisations go to market, certainly in relation to job specs, where you need to improve your diversity.
Of course.
Because
or reduce bias.
Absolutely. Because actually, we all, when we produce something, it is how we see, how we see the world and how we experience it. And actually, sometimes without even knowing it, you have written something in a way that might not be appealing to somebody who's older or younger or from a certain ethnic minority. So I think having a tool that flags that to you as a creator and says, look, if you need to attract people with this skill set or from this background, you need to rephrase something to make your language more inclusive, or even to the fact male, female, if it's too, that can really add value, because that's not a natural talent that that we necessarily have within ourselves. And sometimes, having a software and a piece of tool that can, highlight those things to you, I think can be really, really valuable.
In marketing, there's A/B testing. So you send one email type or one marketing campaign, and you have another marketing campaign, and then you see which of the two give the best results. I think we're reaching a point where job adverts, job descriptions, things that go on the website for the same job can be A/B tested. Here's one that will attract the 25-year-old male, and here's one that will attract the 25-year-old female, or here's one that is so neutral, and that ability all to be allowed to get a more diverse response, so you can then pass more diverse candidates forward to your customer and meet with their D&I targets as they go.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I've seen is the creation of interview questions. And asking for, here's a job spec. We've probably all done it. Here's a job spec. I sort of understand it. I don't really understand all the technical parts of it, or I may not fully understand bullet points 3 and 4. Can you help me with some interview questions that a candidate who's good for this job would be able to answer? Maybe some easy ones, maybe some really difficult ones. And can you pass them to that more junior consultant or that inexperienced consultant who's maybe not worked that job type before, in order for them to ask better questions? The challenge is, what should the answer be? But that's maybe something that also we can work on.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I've definitely seen that. I mean, for me, back in the day, that's what Mr. Google was for.
Yes. And Mr. Google's changed a little bit. And I think maybe the advertising traffic that Google used to get is now slightly less in the world of ChatGPT.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Another thing around AI, it's now very possible for a candidate, and we've seen it internally, we've seen cover letters that now are coming to us that are very good. Whereas our cover letters that we had from prospective people coming to work for Kyloe were usually average, but it was a good indication of what the person was like. And we're having cover letters that are now really good more often, which aren't then backed up by a CV that's equally as good, or a call with a candidate that matches the wonderness of the cover letter.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be the challenge moving forward, because absolutely, anybody can do, you can do a great sales pitch at the front end. And even before any AI came, if you had an amazing CV writer, in the family or in your network, that could put it together, But if you can't sustain it then when you're at the interview phase and there's no substance behind it and you can't evidence what you've done, it all falls to pieces. So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, I can absolutely see why people would use it to get a foot in the door, but there has to be something behind it as well.
I don't know if you remember, and I think I'm older than you, so I may remember, when searching became a thing in a database. And certainly in the tech sector, people would have in their CV all the keywords that they knew that people would go and search for.
Yeah.
And in tech, what they did was, in order to come, because you needed to have more keywords to come further up the list. So you had people who would have font size 7, white on white font, white background, and they would have filled the bottom of their CV with all the search words that they knew. So CVs would appear in the result back in the day who had, they're amazing at insert, whatever it was, C++ at that time. And they were going, but they don't have C++. Why has this person come up in the search? You go looking and they had put the bottom page, had loads of really small font, white on white, you couldn't see it, that had all the search phrases. And I think searching is going to become harder in the world of AI generated CVs.
You do, and I think for me, you see it to a degree already with, the volume kind of RPO accounts where they use an ATS, and I do worry that, yes, it serves a purpose. And yes, you can absolutely go through, you can sort, go through huge volumes of CVs. But you know what the reality is? Not everybody has a great CV. Yeah. And I do worry that actually that, we are, potentially losing good candidates from great companies because of the technology piece. And I do think there has to be a combination of both. And certainly you see it more and more. And as I'm now approaching that age of 50, where everybody says,
that oil of Ulay stuff is really good, isn't it?
Yes.
I would have said 40, maybe 35.
Oh, you're such a liar. I mean, there's a reason I liked you. But, you get into that age now where people kind of go, oh, God, you're not going to be hireable, and and for me, I'm thinking, God, I'm only a couple of years away. I wouldn't want my CV to go through an automation tool and be struck out because actually I am from a time where maybe my CV isn't great, because I haven't been brought up in the new. So, and there is definitely talent to be had. And I think making sure that organisations, particularly when it comes to recruitment, combine the technology with the people piece is going to be really key, I think, for sustained growth.
Yeah, you mentioned RPO and you mentioned VMS, and then if we think about the internal hiring teams, I think actually recruitment consultants are going to do well out of AI because those internal teams are going to be swamped with loads of applications that are a perfect match to their job spec, and they're going to have to spend longer and longer going through them to find the right people. And I think the consultancies who've got candidates that they've worked with in the past, that they've done great screening on, that they've got skilled consultants who can ask competency-based questions and really get under the bonnet, are going to be worth more than the percentage they get today.
Absolutely. And I think going back to the whole automation piece, this is where automation tools can add a huge amount of value, because one of the biggest challenges most recruitment agencies have is bringing their candidates that have been placed in a temporary assignment or even gone perm several years ago back into that database. Because let's face it, as salespeople, as we are in recruitment, we typically we don't make the best of administrators. So yes, we place somebody, but how often do we then go back into our CRM and reactivate them in a system when we know they've become available? So typically we spend so much time on searching job boards, which in this current day and age has a massive cost associated to it, and what we, and certainly for me now when I'm talking to my clients, it's database first, CRM first approach, then go outside. And there are a number of tools out there that have great integrations with other sourcing technology that can make that faster and more efficient in searching your database before you have to go outside and to the job boards and have that additional cost. But again, it goes back to the quality of the data. Only if your systems are doing what they need to do in the absence of a recruiter reactivating a candidate on the system will your database be as accurate as it needs to be. And I have seen clients use automation really well to be able to pull those candidates back into the system as their assignments are coming up for an end because they've not been extended and they're going to be looking again in 4 weeks.
Yeah, one of the simplest automations that we recommend to people is, as someone nears the end of a temp or a contract assignment, to update their skills from the job they've just been on, update their availability date, and update the amount that they were earning in that job. So it's now current.
Yeah.
So you've just had them working with you. So you shouldn't have inaccurate data when it comes to searching for that person to be redeployed. So I think it's a great call. And there's an interesting point there. You speak about cost saving. So is cost saving an efficiency, a productivity, or a something else?
I think it's a little bit of everything in my mind. I think one of the challenges that we have as a staffing industry is that, and this is for, whether you're an MSP or an RPO provider or even an SME working with your clients, it's so easy to see margin erosion.
Yes.
It really is, because you want to do more. You want to provide an additional service and that value add to your clients. But have you costed it into your proposal? So all of those things, when you're looking at what your internal process is, what you're doing from a productivity perspective, and how you're facilitating that whole piece, will have an outcome on the cost and your profitability. And you have to be, for me, you have to be mindful of the whole piece from end to end, because it's, because the cost is made up of hard and soft cost savings. So there is an opportunity, I think, to tweak and make improvements right across, every element of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the cost of automation and the investment that you make in understanding your current process and getting your data ready, and then enabling it to meet the goals that you want to get, whether it's redeployment or whether it's keeping your database up to date, is something that you have an upfront cost, but a very long benefit down the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you go.
And I think, for people that are going through that sort of financial analysis and looking at ROI, for me, one of the biggest things, which a lot of people don't, I've noticed don't always do as well as they could potentially, and that is mapping out where they are today.
Yes.
Because if you don't know your starting point, how are you going to know how efficient you are, how productive you are, and what savings you've been able to make as part of that journey? And that should be, for me, something that organisations build into their everyday review and analysis. Because I think, any level of investment these days, there has to be a bolt-on of continuous improvement.
Okay.
You can't just leave that, you can't just implement something and then leave it. You have to have an evolving plan to innovate and improve, and having that mapped out and knowing what those costs are and how they relate to the investment you've made will really show the progress and ultimately the ROI that you're seeing over what period of time.
No, I think that's fantastic. Is that something that you offer?
I help clients identify where they are and where they can find that, because ultimately I think it's still something probably that's relatively subjective in terms of what is important to an organisation and what value they place on certain elements. But absolutely, yeah, that's something that I work with a lot of clients on in terms of how to best maximise ROI and opportunities to future-proof their business for the longer term.
Well, I think that was probably the best conclusion, and it might be that's the place where we should stop. So it's been a pleasure. It's been great to see you again. I'm glad things are going well. I can't believe it's been a year, and I look forward to doing this again and meeting you in real life and working with you to help your customers and our customers become productive and efficient. So thank you so very much.
Thank you ever so much. Speak soon.
That's fine. Cheers.